All right, so today we're looking at a piece of hardware that's essentially trying to solve a physics problem.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about audio networking, but we hardly ever get into the actual bridge, the
Mm,
physical box where the copper meets the code.
the point of entry.
Exactly. So we're doing a deep dive on the QSC D32MI.
Specifically, the Dante and AES67 networked audio interface from Attero Tech. And you said a physics problem.
Yeah, the problem of rack real estate. I mean, we have the spec sheet here. This thing costs just under $6,000, but the real standout stat is physical.
Okay.
It's fitting 32 channels of studio-grade preamps into a single rack unit. That's 1 3/4 inches of vertical space.
Which is, I mean, that's just incredibly dense.
Right. Yeah.
Usually, if you want 32 discrete analog inputs with good high-quality preamps, you're stacking multiple units. You're dealing with all the heat, the bulk.
All the cabling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To compress that high channel density into a single rack space, that lets system designers just shrink the entire footprint of an install.
And looking at the back of it, it seems they did that by ditching the standard XLR jacks. They're using 3-pin depluggable terminal blocks.
Exactly. Which makes perfect sense. For a touring rig, you absolutely want XLR because you're plugging and unplugging every single night.
Sure.
But for a permanent commercial install, terminal blocks are just, they're superior. You terminate all your wiring before the gear even shows up, then you just plug the blocks in.
So much cleaner.
And it takes up way, way less space.
Okay, let's talk about signal management. The specs highlight a software-selectable pad. This solves that classic headache of mixing consumer gear with pro gear, right?
Oh, it does. Big time. In audio, you've got two main voltage standards. Professional gear, like a big mixer, runs hot at +4 dBu. But consumer gear, like, a laptop or some media player, it runs way quieter at -10 dBV. Usually you need external converter boxes to mix those.
Which just adds more points of failure and costs more money.
Oh, right. The D32MI, it just handles this digitally. You configure the input sensitivity for each 16-channel bank in the software. You just tell it, this bank is for the pro mics, and this bank is for the background music player, and the unit just optimizes the gain stage itself.
No extra clutter.
Not at all.
So let's get to the networked part of the name. It speaks Dante, which I think most listeners know is pretty much the standard for audio over IP.
It is.
But it also lists AES67 interoperability. Why is that distinction important here?
Well, you can think of Dante as a proprietary language, sort of like iOS. It works perfectly inside its own ecosystem.
Got it.
AES67 is the open standard. It's like HTML for audio. It lets this device talk to non-Dante equipment if it has to. It basically future-proofs your investment.
I also noticed the port configuration is pretty unusual for a box this size. It's got the standard copper RJ45s, but also 2 SFP ports.
That's a huge deal for large venues. SFP, that's small form factor pluggable, it lets you use fiber optic cables.
Right, because copper Ethernet has that distance limit.
Exactly. It struggles after about 100 meters. With SFP, you can run fiber across a whole stadium or a massive campus directly into this unit. No separate fiber switch needed.
And you can run them in redundant mode.
Yes. So if that primary cable gets cut or, kicked out by accident, the secondary port takes over instantly. The audio never drops.
Let's touch on the integration side. If you're using the QSYS ecosystem, the documents mention a QSYS extension.
And that's all about workflow speed. It's drag and drop.
So no programming.
No spending hours on generic command strings. A tech just drops the D32MI plugin into their design, and all those gain controls and pads we talked about are just there. They're immediately mapped.
Speaking of control, I really appreciate that they didn't make this just a black box.
Yeah.
The front panel actually has buttons and a screen.
It's so rare on interface gear, isn't it? Usually you just plug it in and forget it. But this has confidence monitoring. There's a 1/4-inch headphone jack right on the faceplate.
That feels like a lifesaver for troubleshooting.
It is. I mean, picture it. The audio's dead. Is it the network? The mic. The DSP. Instead of guessing, you walk to the rack, plug in headphones, and listen to the raw input.
And if you hear sound,
Then the mic is fine, and you know the problem is somewhere downstream.
and you can adjust gain and phantom power right there too. You don't even need to open a laptop to fix a clipping mic.
It empowers the person who is physically in the room to solve the problem right then and there.
So to recap here, we have a 1-rack unit box that ingests 32 analog signals, manages their gain staging internally, and converts them to redundant fiber or copper digital streams.
And it's ideally located right at the source, which minimizes the length of all those noisy analog cable runs.
Which really brings us to the big question.
Yeah.
For decades, commercial audio meant pulling these massive, heavy snakes of copper wire through ceilings.
Oh, yeah, huge bundles of it.
With devices like the D32MI sitting at the edge, converting to digital instantly, are we finally witnessing the actual death of the analog snake?
I think that's the trend we're watching.
Yeah. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.